I discovered a hack that will eliminate 2 steps when making angled binding. Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. Enough talking already. The best part about today's quilt tutorial is that I made the cutest, easiest, fastest baby quilt ever. I have a free PDF one-page download of everything you need to make this quilt, and I have a boy version too. You're welcome. The first thing you're going to do when making the My First Mouse Ears baby quilt is to grab that background fabric and cut the strips and pieces that you need. I wanted to pop this video in here to show you how I ended up cutting for the half square triangles. It's not really conventional, that's why I'm showing it to you. You can see here I folded salvage to salvage, then I folded toward the salvage again, and then again. I know it's not conventional, but it's just the way that I did it. When making half square triangles, you need to make sure that the squares are larger than the end result block that you want. So what I'm doing here is just roundabout cutting out what I needed and then cutting it square through all of those layers. But make sure though that you do have a fresh rotary cutter, because you are going through a lot of layers here, but look, it saves a ton of time. Talk about fast, right? Next, I'm going to cut the few background squares that I'll need for this baby quilt. And again, I'm going to fold salvage to salvage and then fold that up once. And then I'm going to cut the strip size of the square needed. And I just go in with the square ruler and go ahead and cut the pieces. And this way, I cut a lot at one time. So there are 4 pieces in one cut, which makes for very efficient quilting. Next, I'm cutting the filler background strips for the bottom sides of the head of the mouse. And you can see I'm utilizing that same exact technique at the beginning of this cutting of the background strips and such. I'm folding it once, salvage to salvage, then folding it again, measuring what I need, and then cutting. It just makes for quicker cutting. The biggest thing is you have to make sure that the fold is closest to you and that it is straight, because if not, then you're going to end up with, you know, a little bit of a wonky strip, and you don't want that. And here I'm just cutting off that excess piece because it's not needed. But all the sizes are in the free pattern download, so no worries. The directions are pretty straightforward and they're all square cuts, so I don't think you're going to have any problems. This is so beginner friendly. I'm not even kidding you. It was super easy to put together. I mean, you're just talking about some squares here. That's it. And square angles. So no worries, friends. You can do it. Here I'm cutting the side border strips for the My First Mouse Ears baby quilt. And then I'm going to be going right into cutting the top and bottom background fabric. It's important to note on the top and bottom inner border, the background fabric that's before the gingham 4 patches, that fabric you will have to cut and sew together to make it long enough. And so, yeah, I mean, because it's longer than width of fabric. Use your 1/4 inch seam allowance and just sew those 2 strips together to make that long enough to fit in the top and bottom borders. And yeah, and then after that, just press it open, that seam, and give it a good hot press. Now all of your background strips and pieces are all cut and ready to go. The next part was really fun for me because I got to pick out the bow color that I wanted and the main portion of the My First Mouse Ears mouse head fabric. Yeah, I think that's right. I ended up going with the scrappy version because I love a good scrappy quilt. If you chose the girl mouse, then you have the bow like I did. And if you're not choosing the girl mouse, then you must be choosing the boy mouse, which is in the pattern too. And he doesn't have a bow, but he does have a little bit of a different construction around the top of the head. Still squares and still half square triangles. So no worries there. For the half square triangle, you're going to take the turquoise in my case, and lay it down, and then lay one of your larger background squares down onto that. Remember, when you make a half square triangle, you always want to start with a larger square for both fabrics, so then you can cut it down to the size needed to put into the quilt. Take your pencil and draw corner to corner. Sew a 1/4 inch onto each side of that line. And you're going to go corner to corner, and then you're just going to cut. And that gives you 2 half square triangles. And then you definitely want to press these. I'm going to press over to the dark side. And you're going to iron these real quick. You have both of your half square triangles pressed. Then you're going to go in with the size needed. You're going to follow right along that line that goes corner to corner on your ruler. I just so happened to have a ruler that fit the size I needed. So that really worked out. Then you're going to turn it and then just trim it. You're going to trim this one the same way. And there you have one of your little half square triangles. We have 2 really. Next, let's work on that easy 4-patch border. It's super easy, friends. Just pick out 2 coordinating different fabrics and cut the squares as per the directions. And you can see here, I'm going to chain piece them at the sewing machine, which is probably the most efficient and fastest way to do any type of sewing that's like this, where you have to connect a bunch of the same blocks together. And that's all I'm doing here. And I just love that turquoise and red together, don't you? Check out this new little tool that my friend Debbie, and she's also a follower of this channel, got me at QuiltCon when we were there this last month. I love it, Debbie. Thank you so much. And it totally does press those seams instead of using your finger. Next, after you finger pressed or use that tool, take it over to your pressing station, and then you're going to press it with a hot iron, and then you're going to pin the 2 sets of pieces together, making that 4-patch. Remember to nest your seams. I made sure to press all of my seams to the darker color, the red side in this case. And then when I went and put the 4 patches together to sew them together, I did open those seams. I really wanted to show you how versatile this pattern really was. You don't have to go scrappy. You could even go all one color like I did here, making it look like, giving it that illusion that it's all one piece of fabric for the bow. I've added in the other background fabrics here that go with this section. I designed my patterns into chunks. I know it sounds weird, but it's portions almost, so that way in the end everything squares up when you go to put everything together. Like this piece here, once I get that all sewn together, then I will connect the next piece all together, all those blocks, and then those will go together, and so on and so forth. In the pattern, I give you exact order of attachment, so that way you can't mess it up. So I'm going to get busy and start sewing this together, and all I'm going to do is just grab these. I'm going to lay them down in front of me. Now, this is real life for me, so a lot of times what I do in real life sewing and quilting is I do grab them off of my design wall and bring them down to the table, so I'm literally looking at it as I'm sewing it. I've messed up a ton of times, friends, when constructing certain quiltings and different things, and you know what? I learned my lesson. So I sort of just lay it right down here where I can see it, so that way I won't mess up when I go to sew it together. I'm going to do rows for this one. So I'm going to grab 2 pieces and sew them together. Now I'm not going to show you all the sewing in this particular video. You will totally get how to do this though. It's that easy. It's just sewing squares together. Typically what I do is I just open them up there and sew by 2s in the orientation needed. When working with half square triangles, it's really easy to mess them up in your sewing. That's why I lay everything, out in front of me. Then I'll just lift this one over. Then I'll grab these two. When they're this small, I don't tend to pin, but as it gets a little bit bigger, I do start to pin. And you can see every time I attach something, I open it up, look at it before I attach the next piece. It's that easy to get mixed up. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I'm telling you, I've messed up enough times to know to do that. The last thing anybody wants to do is unpick. Okay, once that row is sewn, I don't stop to iron it just yet. I wait until all the rows are sewn and then I press. So deciding on which way to push your seams is totally up to you. But wherever you start a section going one way, make sure that the next chunk or section that you make is all pressed the opposite way. Then everything will, you know, nest. So let's see. So I went that way with the seams. So, well, this one doesn't really matter because it's all the same. I can just flip it. But you want to go the opposite direction with this one then. And all the links to my Laura Star iron are down in the info box. It's the best iron ever. Ever, I tell you. I get asked all the time about this mat right here. All it is round particle board with batting on it and extra fabric, you know, and this that I made here. And you can tell how many times I've made new covers, lots and lots and lots. So I just keep piling them up over top. But that's all it is, friends. It's just a little board. That's all it is. Just particle board. That's it. And, you know, homemade elastic cover. Woo, let's see. It's dusty. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 covers over that. You are going to then connect these. So we're going to go like that. And then I will add some pins in here. And what I'll do is nest these seams together. So I haven't decided which way I'm going to press these yet. What I'm going to do is connect these two, and then I will connect this to that, and then I will press the bow, and I'll show you that here in a sec. Here's this darling bow all sewn up, and I wanted to share with you on the back, I did press all the way up on all of those seams once I connected the strips together. Next, you're going to put all the other sections together, and then the borders, and then you're going to sandwich it and quilt it and bind it. I know, we're not done yet. Now I came up with this pattern design because I could not find a baby quilt pattern that matched the first mouse ears idea that I had in my head. I just love the small scale design of these blocks and half square triangles to make the most darlingest quilt ever. Adding in those 4 patches for the top and bottom borders, I just adore that. And as Di would say, you know, that's a classic Tracy right there. Oh yeah, she knows me. It really is amazing all the variations that you could think up with this type of quilt. You could change it all sort of ways. I mean, honestly, send me pics if you change this up. I would love to see them. For the free motion quilting on this quilt, I decided, of course, to do some mouse head and some ears with a swirl design. Now, I didn't want a ton of mouse ears on this. I wanted to do swirls, and I wanted to pepper in all of the little mouse heads. And you can see just how easy they really are to make. If you know your swirls, you can do this. All you do is go into the swirl, and then you're going to just add a couple humps for the ears, and that's it. You have your first mouse ears, free motion quilted head with ears. I discovered how to eliminate 2 steps when making angled binding, which makes it a ton faster to make. After cutting your binding strips, you're then going to open them up and lay them right on top of each other so that each end is straight on each end. Grab one of your rulers that has a 45-degree angle on it. That's important for this hack. Take that line on the ruler, that 45-degree line, and lay it down right on the bottom edge of your binding strip. And then you're just going to slice at an angle there and take off that end. And you can see here how I have it laying so that it's all face up. I'll show you here how it's laying. You can see that there's the wrong side of the fabric and then the right side of the fabric. So you're keeping it all, facing up. And then you're going to get that other end of the binding strips and you're going to cut that at an angle, just in the same manner that you cut that first strip. Separate the strips just like you see me doing here. Lay one down and lay the other one on top of it, right sides together, matching up those angles perfectly. You just have to make sure that those little dog ears hanging off measure at 1/4 inch each. If you don't make sure that those little dog ears are hanging off at 1/4 inch, then your strip won't match up. So be sure and do that. So here I just finished sewing that and I open it up and it's absolutely perfect. Now you will have to cut off those dog ears though, and I just trimmed those off at the sewing machine as I attached the binding actually. Here it is, friends, all washed and ready to go to the recipient baby. What do you think? It turned out super cute, right? So let me show you the back. Hopefully you can see it. Now this one here is not done yet because this one is going to my granddaughter Josephine. When she saw that I was making this quilt right here and I told her that it was for a baby shower that I had to go to, she said, "Aw, but I want one, Mimi." Well, you know that's all that takes. So this is her. She loves princesses. So of course I went through my stash and I found every single princess fabric that I had and I fussy cut the faces out and put every other one a princess. That's all there is to this one. I wanted to leave you with some final thoughts about this quilt pattern. I have a baby shower that I need to go to. The theme is, of course, this right here that you see. I can't say it because of copyright reasons, but you get it. I went looking for a baby quilt pattern for this and I couldn't find it. So I want to inspire you that when you don't see something that's out there that you know you want to make, sketch it out on paper, make up the design yourself, and make it easy. Squares and triangles. That's all it is. Think outside the box. Add in design elements like a gingham 4-patch border or polka dots and quilt stars. Sky's the limit, friends. I want to encourage you to take advantage of that free PDF download. Be sure to be a subscriber before you do that. You know why? Because that helps me to bring you more of what you love and to keep it on the free. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.